Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. I feel like, what was her name? Like Auntie Cleo, or whatever. The numbers don't lie. Guys, you know what? Today, I'm doing some continuing education. I'm doing some Lean Six Sigma auditing, and it's horrible. It's horrible. I was dozing off. I was thinking about other things because the guy's just talking. Right? It's one of those presentations, guys just talking. And all the time I started thinking, it came to my mind, and I couldn't do anything about it because I couldn't have my cell phone out, right? But I started thinking, did that thing say just one container? The whole time, this is back in my mind. Is it just one container, or is it multiple containers? So it wasn't until I got out of there and saw, oh my gosh, it's only one container. Yeah, I'm hoping it's more than one container, because this just makes it absolutely nuts. So let's do a business breakdown, guys, because this will tell you a lot of how this whole thing has been operating. I don't know about you guys, but when I saw this project, I was thinking this is at least 1,000 units. That makes sense to me, right? That makes sense to me. A project like this where you have to do project management, you have consultants, whatever, you want to do 1,000 units because that's how you get that bread buttered, right? Nice and thick, everybody gets a slice. You're doing those kind of numbers. But then I saw that it's just one container. Well, let me tell you what the difference is. Think about the dimensions of the boxes, right? If we look at those dimensions, and we're going to the larger size, right? Let's just be generous. And I'm just going to do round numbers here, right? So, a container could be those type of boxes anywhere from 240 to 300 something, right? But for the sake of argument, let's just say 300. I was thinking that this project was going to have at least 1,000 pre-orders. That's what I thought, guys, because economically it wouldn't make sense for me to do less than that. There's just not enough money in it, right, to be profitable, and have all the incidentals covered that might come across your way, as they have, as you can see. But here we have just one container. So that's 300 units. So if you have 300 units, and again, I'm rounding up the numbers, it could be a little more, it could be a lot less, it could be 240, right? Well, for sake of argument, let's say 300 units. At 550, that's like $165,000. Right? And if you run just regular numbers, right? So in manufacturing, to cover your butt, let's say that you're in an industry where you have no competition, right? And there's no competition, you're making something unique. Usually your markup's 100% because you can play with that pencil a little bit. You don't have any competition, right? You're not competing with anybody. You just make your product and you ship it. When you're in a competitive market, that reduces quite a bit. You have to sharpen your pencil in order to move units. What does that mean? In practicality, right? And again, I'm just using standard business formulas, okay? So if you use a standard business formula, let's say you're the distributor, you're buying these from overseas or what have you, you're usually at a 1.5, right? In a competitive market, meaning that you're adding $50 to every $100 that you spend. Out of those $50, you have to cover everybody, and about 10% of that is your labor. That's where you want to cover it, right? Commission or whatever. Commissions can range anywhere from 8 to 10% depending on how much you sell, right? I definitely look at 10%. If you're doing 1,000 units, right, and it's 699,000, so now you have 69,000 for your consultant salesperson, who usually is combined to being the project manager, right? So they're selling and being the project manager at the same time. That's what most companies do. You don't want to pay two people to do the same thing, right? A salesperson's just giving out bids or whatever. That's not the case here. You had a consultant like John D. But for the sake of argument, right, let's say that John D is due 10% of whatever it is. I don't think it's that high. But let's just say for the sake of argument, it's 10%. $69,000 would make a lot of sense when you're selling 1,000 units. If he's getting 10% at 165, it's only $16,000. No, that's not going to work for me. That's not going to work for anybody. right? That's the reason, I wouldn't. I'm going to be sincere, guys. I would do my general work, but then after I do this, just for 300 units, you want me to go out there, start taking heat from all the YouTubers, have Gen X Gamer tell me that my business practices are not in par what they used to be, and getting all this criticism? Hell no. I ain't showing up. You're not paying me for that. Right? I would at 69,000, right? And I can do other projects. I'm not going to do it at 16,000, and you get free labor for what, a year now? After I did all the background work or whatever. Now, who knows how that cease and desist affected everything? Because that's another expense. Now, imagine, right? Let's just look at this project here. At 165,000, probably 110,000 just cost. And then you have that 60,000, 50,000 to pay everything else, to pay everybody's labor, to pay commissions, to pay the transport from the from the dock everywhere else they're going. You got to pay the UPS, however they're going to ship these. I don't know. There's not enough butter there, man. I hope there's more containers, right? Because can you imagine just having like $60,000, $70,000 to cover everything else? And the 100,000 has to include all the software. Oh, wow, 110,000 for software and manufacturing. That's a thin budget, man. That really is. It wouldn't be if you made 1,000, cabinets. Much bigger order. Now, if they are to succeed, they need to sell more cabinets, obviously, right? And I hope that there's back orders. Maybe not everybody's getting their pre-orders, because if you only sold 300, that's not great. Let me tell you that is not great. If that's all they were able to muster, that might be it, right? Maybe they were expecting a lot more action. I would. If I was doing if I had to put this project on a Kickstarter, I would have said, once we reach 1,000, then we're gonna, we'll start producing. Less than 1,000, it doesn't make sense. There's just not enough money there for me to feel comfortable to do all this stuff, and take all this risk, right? Because at the end of the day, somebody's taking the risk in the background, right? And if they're only sending 300, they're taking it in the shorts. They're not going to make as much money as they could have had if the project was better managed, right? The risk assessment was properly done and everything else, and those have been my criticisms. And that's unfortunate, because you do need another player in the market making high-quality cabinets. But whoever's going to make them has to do great project management from the beginning, right? Making sure that all your ducks are lined up in a row, and that you have enough funding to produce everything, right? And have everything, dialed down. Now, does Iconic Arcade have money to burn, and this is just a trial run to see how it's going to go? Hopefully. I don't know. I don't know what their books are, right? But I have to tell you, I am quite surprised, very surprised, that all they're showing is one container that's 300 units. I thought they would have sold at least 1,000. Because if they only sold 300, that's why you're not seeing people on camera. There's not enough money to pay them. Who's going to work for free? You? I sure as hell not, right? If you already paid me my dues, and then you want me to do all this other no, break me off, somebody. Anyway, guys, let's see how this ends up. I hope there's enough here, right? Hopefully they made the UI was costed at, maybe there's some other cabinets they're going to produce that they're going to use it in. Maybe, that's how they costed it out. I don't know. But this whole thing seems strange. It really does. 300 units doesn't make sense. I thought we were dealing with 1,000. How many did you guys think they pre-ordered? I didn't think it was 300. I can tell you that right now. Maybe there's more containers. Hopefully so. All right, guys, let me know. I'll catch you on the next one. Make sure you like and subscribe. Join the channel if you want to hear more topics. Choose a topic with Kofi. Catch you on the next one. Take care.